What's up, Ace Campers? Today I wanted to take one sample out of my new pack that's coming out called Movie Robots, which is 1,000+ robot type sounds, all royalty free, coming out super soon. I think in the next week or two I'm going to put it out. Keep an eye out for that. But I'm going to pull one sample from that, and I'm going to make a riser, a guitar, and a pad from it. So let's jump into it. So I'm going to scroll through my samples here and find one that I might want to work with. Let's pick that one. We have our sample. We'll call this original sample. Let's listen to what we got here. So it was warped, so make sure it warps off. Cool, so a bunch of crazy shit going on here. So let's start chopping this thing up. Let's make a riser out of it first. So let's copy this down here by doing Option or Alt dragging. And let's find a little portion of this that we like, that we want to stretch out and sort of make into a riser. Probably one of these little sections, right? That isn't so crazy. So let's just take this little section here. Let's ramp it up a little bit, or ramp off the clicks. So that sounds cool because it kind of goes up into like a filter sweep type of effect at the end here. So if we stretch this out as much as we can, and let's make sure it's warped again. Shift drag. Let's see how far this will let us take it. Looks like that's as far as it'll go, so let's hear that. And I want to go a little farther, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command J, which is consolidate. I'm just going to drag it out 4 bars. Let's hop in here, do a couple quick changes in the clip. We're going to make sure the envelopes tab is shown by clicking this little thing down here. And we want clip in the top menu and then transposition in the bottom. And then we're going to make a dot at the beginning and at the end. And the dot at the end is going to be dragged up 1 octave or 12 half steps. So let's hear that. Cool. So that's pretty much all the way to the riser like bass tone. So let's make it a little bit more interesting. Let's hold Option and push this down a little bit to make the slope a little bit more curved. Cool. All right, so now that we got that, let's add some effects to it. So I usually add like a reverb and an auto filter. So let's just do the reverb automation after the auto filter, so that way when we sweep up and get rid of some frequencies over time, the reverb's not being affected by that. So let's draw the automation for the reverb. We're gonna start it down low, not very wet, and then it's gonna end pretty wet, and let's make this curve a little bit more interesting. Boom. And make sure your reverb has this quality high on, just so it sounds a little bit better. And for the filter, we're going to do a high pass. I'm going to drag this down, and we're going to go from the bottom to the top, basically ending with like kind of a washed out sound. Cool. And that's a little bit too much, so maybe we'll make this curve even sharper and make it just flip up at the end like that. And we could even do this dot. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can grab it. You know, somewhere around there maybe. And now that I zoom in, I see this isn't totally at the end, so let's just click and drag this again. Make sure it's at the end there. And let's hear what this sounds like. Cool. Maybe bump the resonance up a little bit so we can hear it coming out or coming up. And maybe we drag this a little higher. And maybe just some EQ to clean it up. Cool. Pretty basic riser. A couple things you can do to make it a little more interesting. You can add some warping or change the warping modes, add some like color that way. Can't really hear it here because we've already consolidated it down. So you'd want to do that before you flatten it like I did with the Command J command. So, and we could even pull this out even further. Got to make sure the automation goes with it though. Now the texture's gonna affect it, so. Cool. At the end there's like little clicks and we just ramp that off. Or if you like it, keep it. All right, the only thing left to do with that before you'd save it is find the key. So we can go back to the original and take that little snip that we did. So you can bring on a tuner. So it looks like it's a little bit below A, so we can just label this A. And if I'd say this is a file, I'd probably save it like riser 1 and then A and then the BPM. That's what the file name would look for me when I'd save it into my personal library. So that's the riser. Let's label this riser. Let's assign that color to the clip so we have it all organized. And let's move on to our next challenge. Let's do a guitar. So we'll name this guitar. Change this to what? Maybe green. All right, so now we're gonna make a guitar out of this. And when I say guitar, I'm gonna make a playable like MIDI instrument that we can drag on any track. That will sound like a guitar using this sample. So let's just find another little piece of this. This time I'm going to take a little chunk here, just a little bit, because we're just going to want like a little plucking sound. Cool, so we have that. I'm going to make a new MIDI track. I'm going to open Simpler on this track, and we're going to first flatten this. And if you like, you can see that, make sure the tune's right. So that looks like it's B flat right here. So that's good that it's right on. So we can just drag this in, and if we play a few notes, we're good to go. So one thing to note, that when you're playing C, now it's a B flat, so we want to change that. If we go to Controls and Transpose, so if we look at the piano roll real quick, just so we can visualize this, since the tuner said it was a B flat, and we'll just up here, this is what I'm talking about. If we just loop this, we can. So that little clip is a B flat. So what we're going to do here is, since B flat is actually A sharp, we want to find out the distance between this note and C. So this, for this case, it would be 1, 2, right? So it'd be 2 notes up. Right now, playing this C is playing the original sample, which is a B flat. So we want this to be a C. So what we're going to do is, like I said, this is B flat right here. B flat is A sharp. The same thing. We're going to move this up 1, 2. How we do that in here is we go into Simpler, Controls, Transpose, 1, 2. So now every time you play the C, it's going to be a C. And to verify, let's bring another tuner on this track. And I'm going to play C's. There we go. All right, so you probably might be asking yourself how I'm going to turn this into a guitar. It sounds like just a shitty little stab thing. I like to use Guitar Rig. I'm sure you guys have heard of this. But pretty much any little pluck sound, now you can just put on something like, let's see, solo thrash. And it's sounding close to a guitar, but we need to make this note sustain longer. So one thing we can do, a little trick, you can toss a reverb on here before the Guitar Rig. And what the reverb's going to do is it's going to give the sound a little bit more length. Cool. So, not the best sounding guitar, but we can make it work. So, let's go back in here. Let's warp this, and let's turn the volume down. Maybe add an EQ, clean this up a little bit. And you have a guitar type tone that you could be using for basses or riffs or something like that, made out of this sample. So I'm going to name this guitar MIDI, and then we're going to group these and call this guitar. Maybe call this audio. Cool. And make them all green. And this is the one you'd use. Cool. So that's your guitar out of the sample. And the last one is a pad. So let's do Control T, make a new track. Call this one pad. We'll make this one blue. And now we're just going to take this whole sample, put it down here. And it's pretty loud with the bass and stuff, so let's just crank this down a little bit to -3. And we really want just like, I mean, you could run this whole thing through the reverb like we're about to do, but for this purpose, I'm just going to take these two alternating notes. So it's like, and I'm going to stretch that out after pressing warp, of course. Stretch that out more. And I'm going to put my favorite reverb on here, Shimmer. And it's just going to make it kind of all blend together in a big echoey type of chamber sound. And it's pretty bass heavy, so let's bring this up an octave. And I'm going to EQ out the bass here because we don't really want that in our pad. And I kind of want the tones to be more, to be longer, have more length. So let's just double this again. Maybe even one more time. So when you reach the limit of your doubling, make sure you just consolidate by Command J, and then you can double it again. And out of all of this, I really like this clip, so let's just isolate this by itself real quick and loop that. So this is good. So why I threw a tuner on here is if you were going to use this while you're writing a track or we're trying to add to one that you already have, you probably want to know the tone of that pad if it's like at all tonal in the part you're adding it to. So because this is sort of like one sustained note because we stretched it out so long, it's going to be easier to sort of tune it to what you're adding it to. So it looks like it's close to A flat. So yeah, you could go in there and mess with the tuning and really dial it in, or sometimes the detuned slightly effect is something that adds a lot of color to anything. So maybe you want to keep it that way. So there's a pad for you. And what I do here is let's make this a group. It's called this pad, call this audio. And then of course, we're going to resample this. Click there, chord arm, boom. And not only do you have a pad now, there's a pretty cool riser you could take out of this by chopping this little end off, coming over here, pressing R. Boom. So this is typically how I mess with samples. It's a really cool way to, get new sounds out of packs you download, whether they're risky like the Wally pack that I pulled, because all those samples are straight from the movie, and you kind of have to manipulate them to be able to technically use them in your songs without worrying about, someone coming after you for copyright infringement. Or if it's just a pack like my Movie Robots pack that has a lot of sounds, but maybe you want to just do something slightly different. It's a good jumping off point to just kind of be able to do this sort of thing, turn any sound into these things, and it'll make you a better producer if you learn how to do that. So hopefully this little challenge that I went through today helped you in some way, shape, or form. If you like these sort of style of tutorials, let me know. I'll do more of them. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time on Basecamp. Peace.